All right, how many of you are elementary EC through 6? Woohoo! Okay. How many of you are Math 712? 3 of you, keep your hands up. How many of you are Science 712? Cool. If you'll just step outside, grab your stuff, we got you. We've got a car waiting for you. We're going to whisk you off. No. When you start looking at the job market, of course, it's supply and demand. EC6, lots of hands go up. Math and science, not so much. Okay? So the competition's a little bit different. So you're going to be handled differently. If you're EC6, you better really know your stuff. If you're math or science 7 through 12, you better not be crazy. Okay? We always say our math folks are a little different, you know. They like everything to add up on that. But that's really true. You know, if you're math or science, I look at you, the first thing I want to say, okay, are you crazy? Have you gone over the deep end there? And if not, we're probably going to hire you, okay? So keep that in mind. Preparing a 15-second introductory commercial about yourself. Commercials sell, okay? Otherwise, they wouldn't be spending millions and billions of dollars on Super Bowl commercials, right? You have to have that quick 15-second commercial about yourself when you introduce yourself. You don't walk up to someone and say, oh, here's my resume. I'm in Texas Teachers, blah, blah, blah. All my life I wanted to be in your schools, and blah, and you're going on and on and on, and I don't care. Okay? Really, I don't. I want to know what you can do for me, all right? And so you need to know how to present yourself very quickly. So where my math people, my secondary science people, the first thing out of your mouth should be, hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm a Math 712 candidate. I'm a Science 712 candidate. The minute you say that, guess what? I'm interested. Okay? How many of you are already teaching maybe a charter school or private school? Anyone? Okay, so I'm an experienced teacher in, well, that should be your lead off. Okay? Every one of you is going to have a different story. So I won't be able to answer something that fits to you specifically because there's just too many variables. All right? Substitutes? Any substitutes? Bless you, bless you, bless you, bless you. Great, great. You need to be able to say, hi, I'm well, so-and-so, what your certification is with substitute experience. Lots of substitute or substitute experience in your district, those kinds of things, okay? You've got to be able to sell yourself very, very quickly, all right? Don't go on and on, like, oh, this and that, and oh, what do y'all pay, and blah, blah, and this, and just go on and on. And I'm already writing on it, thank you so much, I'll give you the spill, and I move it, I'll never see your resume again, okay? Because I'm not interested. You've got to make me interested, all right? Okay, any questions about that so far? Okay, so what do you have? Some of you have done corporate trainings. How many of you have done trainings? You were trained, so use that in your, with experience as a trainer. So, you know, because that's that lesson design. Customer service, that's always a good one because you're going to be working with the community, working with parents, working with kids. You know, so you have to have that customer service piece. Okay? All right. We don't want your life story from when you were in pre-K all the way through. Okay? Highlight, hit those highlights. What are those things that you bring to the table? And then with the recruiter or the principal or whomever you're speaking with will then give you follow-up questions. Then you get a chance to talk, okay? On doing that. But make sure you bring it very, very concise and in there because people will start talking and talking and talking and things get really crazy and I'm just, okay, well, let me tell you a little bit about the district and then I take over, then I do the talking, I take your resume and we're done, okay? So just keep that in mind, guys. Get that commercial. It's really, really important. Okay, how many of you have been on the Texas Teachers website and kind of been through there thoroughly and gone through, good. Because there's a resource page, there's lots of stuff, there's interview questions, there's some other resources. This seminar will be taped and edited to the PG version and then placed on the website as well. Okay, So there's lots of stuff in there. There's also a list. There's also a list of the job fairs that are there. Okay, so they've got that information. They also have a LinkedIn page. If you're not on their LinkedIn, I would suggest that you get that. Jonathan is really good about sending stuff out all the time on LinkedIn as well, and it's just information that you will need. Okay, all right. Okay, will they hire ACP candidates? Okay, ACP is Alternative Certification Program. Every one of you is an ACP candidate. Okay. So, will they hire? Yes, no, maybe so. Elementary, 1 in every 5 statewide that are hired are ACP. Okay? At secondary, 1 in every 2. Okay, so 50%. So there's a whole difference. A lot of it will have to do with who went before you. So if you had, if there was a great ACP candidate before you that got hired, I have principals that swear by ACP and they go, you know what, give me an ACP. Yeah, they were great. Blah 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 blah. They have systems in place. Then I have principals where they've had a bad experience. Don't give me an ACP. I don't want ACP. And then I've got principals that still don't know what ACP is.
Once we finish our probationary year and actually have our teaching certificate, are we still deemed ACP?
No. Question is, once you do your internship on your probationary certificate, during that probationary certificate, you are a certified teacher. Okay? So you are certified going through an alternative route. Then once you're done, you are state certified, and that's it. Because I get that confusion sometimes when people apply because they keep saying, I'm ACP. Well, they were certified like 3 years before, but they're still saying they're ACP. So I'm thinking they're just now getting in a program. And then I find out, oh, you've been teaching 3 or 4 years, so, you know, on there. But sometimes there's a reason why they don't want to tell me that. You know, they want me to think they're still new. Okay, all right. We talked about commercial sale, meet and greet, how to dress appropriately. If you look in the mirror and the night before and you look hot after you tried it on, you're going for the wrong interview, okay? Tone it down. Tone down the jewelry. Tone down the cologne, please. A lot of people are allergic to different things, and so just any little thing can set them off, okay? Don't sit there and eat popcorn in the car before you go in there or smoke a cigarette. I don't smoke, so I can smell cigarette smoke a mile away. So when you walk in my office, I'm just trying to get you out of there as quickly as possible, okay? So just keep that in mind as well. Even, well, I smoked outside, but if you're a non-smoker, it really makes a difference. And I know you're going, well, that's not fair. It is what it is. Okay? So just keep that in mind. On their body language, walk in there. Don't look scared to death. But don't look like you own the place either. Don't walk in there and being all loud and obnoxious and stuff. We do have people that do that. Okay? We want you to be your professional self, not your crazy self. Okay? So, and then make sure you have resumes and a portfolio, and we'll touch on that in just a little bit. Social media, clean it up. Okay? Even if you have settings to private, there's a friend, one of your friends out there will be sending us something. Okay? And we get that sometimes. Some people apply and then someone will send me a thing. I know I heard this person's applying in your district. You may want to see this. You know, we can't see it on the public side, but on their private side, they have stuff shared and they share it with us. Okay? So clean it up. Your resume, I'm just going to touch on this very, very quickly because there's some resources on the Texas Teachers website, okay? And I think they also walk you through, do they walk you through that training as well on resume building, those of you that have already gone through the program? Yes, they're going to do that. They're going to give you information. The main thing is make sure your resume has your name and your personal information, personal contact information. Don't put crazy Puerto Rican 2, 3 or super stud, whatever. Clean up your email addresses, okay? That's the first thing we notice. Make sure it's your legal name. So if your name's Robert, don't put Bobby, because when you do your application, it's going to be under Robert, and we're not going to have a match, okay? So if you're Denise, Deidre, whatever, don't put Dee because I have no clue which Dee, and I'm not going to search. We have, right now, we've got a new applicant system, and I think we're just hit 150,000 applications have come in. So for me to try to match your resume with that application, it's probably not going to happen. I had a question. Yes,
I was just going to say that if you email them your resume, they'll critique it and send it back to you.
okay, cool. Yeah, Texas teachers will critique your resume. You can send it to them, and they'll get it back to you, okay? A quick objective to obtain a teaching position in Math 712. Okay, very, very simple. To obtain a teaching position in pre-K. Guess what? Everybody wants pre-K. Guess what? They're not going to look at you. So don't, elementary, don't pigeonhole yourself in real, just in EC through 6, okay? Just gonna, in special ed, where are my special ed people? Yeah, cool. Special ed can be life skills, it can be adaptive behavior, it can be PPCD, it can be in-class support, it can be resource. Be careful, again, don't pigeonhole, but you could say with interest in this area. But if you only want to do in-class support, I wouldn't do that because they're going, oh, she just wants a free ride, okay? But any people with life skills experience, yeah, cool. Yeah, that's a very high need area in special ed. In-class support, there are a dime a dozen, okay? Special ed people in your commercial, be careful that you're not using your own personal experiences to where you have a hidden agenda that comes out. What does that mean? Oh, I'm special ed, I'm so-and-so, I'm special ed, and I want to work life skills and blah, 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 because, my brother was like, and oh my God, I know that I need to help these kids, and blah, 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 and I feel so sorry. They don't know what they went through, and I know, blah, blah. And I'm going, okay, you're an emotional mess. I don't want you anywhere near them, okay? But we get that. There's no crying in interviewing. But we have it. Probably about once a month, someone breaks down crying in an interview. And it's like, that's one of the things that we're trying to see. Can you handle emotional stress? And if you can't even handle an interview where you're talking about it, then it's not going to happen in a classroom. The next bullet, and it needs to be in a section all by itself, certification. All right. Don't just start making up stuff. I want to teach PE. Well, great. If you're not certified in PE, you can't. Okay? Unless you're EC through 6, sorry. Okay. But anyone have a letter from your acceptance letter from Texas teachers? Great. Can someone really handily have one out there? Awesome. See how she just pulled that out? That's what I want you to have in your portfolio, where you can just pull things right out. Looks like this, and right here it tells you what your certifications are. You are approved to teach a probationary certificate. Just pretty much stick to that, okay? If you'll just follow that, you'll be fine, all right? But that has to be by itself. People do all this fancy stuff. When I look at your resume, the first thing I want to do is, I'm not looking at your name, all this stuff. The first thing I look for is what's your certification, and then I circle it. Then the next thing I look at, do you have any experience working with kids? Okay, and then I circle it, all right? So that's what's important to me. And then if you get past those 2 steps, then I start looking at everything else, all right? And then we want that to be available. All right. Experiences with students. If you don't have experiences teaching or working with kids, you need to go get some. If you don't have experiences working with other people's kids, you need to go get some. It's very, very different. Yes, ma'am.
We were talking about certification. What if you're at the point where you haven't passed your content exam, for example?
That's okay. But that's still your certification area. And then the question is, I haven't passed my content exam. So what test are you going to take?
EC through 6 core subjects.
Okay, so you're going to put EC through 6 core subjects, take an exam on, put that in parentheses, take an exam on whatever. Okay? But that tells me what route you're on, because that's what I need to know. Because people will leave all that off. Well, I haven't taken my test. I didn't put that down there. And you go on and on. I'm like, again, what is your thing? Okay? Because remember, there's a long line. And I know I seem very impatient, but at the job fairs, I'm kind of impatient because there's a long line. I need to get through to them. And there's people in the back going, oh, good God, lady. Good. You should put that on your resume, you know. Or that gentleman needs to, oh my God, what's he doing here? Okay, so other people get impatient as well. So we just try to streamline it because like when we go to Gulf Coast thing, we'll talk to 200-300 candidates, and we're going to be talking sometimes to 10 at a time because our lines are so long. But we want to get you the information, and we want to get the information, and if it's not readily available, I can't circle it. Okay, so you go in the pile where I didn't circle on that information. Okay, so experiences with children. If you've been substituting, you may want to put that as a separate section, substitute teaching experience. This lady's been teaching, so you want to put teaching experience. You may want to label it as job-related skills if you've been doing training and you've been designing. If you had to design some of the lessons and some of the trainings, put that in there because that's all part of lesson planning. Okay, so you're going to have to tailor it as close as you can to make it look like an education resume. All right. Work experience, how far back do you go back? I always get that question, how far back? Well, we want to know that you've held a job, okay? And so, but if it's in the same field, you may want to just tailor it. It's from this year to this year, I worked in whatever at various companies or, you know, at 3 companies, you know, for 10 years, whatever. You know, so you want to do that. Okay, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I haven't been working. Any stay-at-home moms in here? Yeah. So you may want to put that in there from this year to this year, stay-at-home mom, and then put the, it just lets us know what you've been doing, because if I don't see something there, I think you're trying to hide something from me, okay? And then if I see lapses in your work history, I'm going to ask you, okay, well, what did you do from this year to this year? Oh, I was in Africa. Okay. Were you working? No. Okay, I'm already scared. Okay? Because you're not, you know, I can't really ask you. I mean, I can, but I'm not going to ask you point blank. Tell me what you were doing for those 2 years, you know. But, and that actually happened, and the guy was just, I'm like, because most people, they're going, oh, I was in Africa doing the peace mission and the Peace Corps. You know, they're explaining, and then you feel better. But when they're just in there going, no, and I'm not putting it on my resume, and I'm not telling you. I'm like, okay, I'm not hiring you, because I don't know what you were doing, okay, on there. Okay, so make sure that nothing in there throws up a red flag, and that's what we're trained to do. Quickly spot red flags. I start looking through that. Okay, have you held a job? If you've held a job every 6 months, then I really start worrying about it. Okay? All right. Education, you can list that. References, okay. Very, very quickly. Your references are just the list of referents, people that have supervised you. They have to be supervisory in nature. Not your pastor, unless you're the music director for the church or the church secretary where the pastor really is your supervisor, you know. Not your best friend, not your colleague, not the person who sat in the next cubicle, but people who actually supervised you, all right? Well, my ex-wife was my supervisor, and she's not going, well, I can't help you, okay? I've had that before, so sorry.
Does it need to be in the educational field?
No, no. And most of you, your supervisors won't be in the educational field at all. Now, my things, they won't give references. They've already told me that. Well, put them this way anyway. Sometimes they will a little bit, or you have what do you call it? Performance evaluations, and you should have copies of those. And sometimes those will work. Yes, ma'am.
What if you've been subbing with a district, like I've been subbing with one all year, and a few teachers have told me they would?
Yes, substitute teachers. Yes, substitute teachers, and then you want to have teachers. So those aren't really your colleagues. They really are people who have helped you and supervised you, and that. And sometimes front office. There's some administrators, especially if you've been subbing at one place for a long time or long-term subs. Yes, those are great references. Now, once you've completed an application, in the application, you're going to list their email address, and almost everyone here in the Houston area, they're going to send them that email. Okay, sometimes they'll return it, sometimes they won't, but it's really up to you to ensure that those references or reference forms are returned. Reference forms are not the same as those letters of recommendation that they've given you. Okay, these are the forms that are actually sent through the application process. Okay, and it's very specific on a scale of 1 to 5. What did they do? Blah, blah, blah. And we just want to know where you fall. Yes, ma'am.
I've applied to the Cy-Fair district,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just wondering, because this happens with almost all districts, like if you do a teacher poll and you do your references and the emails get sent out, and then if you want to apply to a specific position, they want you to resend the references out again, is it necessary for them to fill
Okay,
it
that's
out?
a very, very good question. She's applied, and basically what she's saying is she's applied for different levels of positions. So when she applied for a teacher reference for our school district, yes, they got sent a teacher reference form. If you applied for another teacher position, it won't send it again because it already has been sent out. But if you switch and you apply for an administrator, now you're going to get an administrative form, which is very, very different. Okay, so yes, you're going to probably see that in most districts. If you have a para position, because for a para educator, they only want to know certain things. If it's for teacher, we want to know a lot more. For substitute, it's very, very different. Because we used to have the generic one, but half the stuff didn't apply, so people were just not even filling them out. Kind of like, why are they asking me this if she's applying for a teacher? Yeah. Because a lot of it's have you perform staff development and all this stuff, and that's really more administrative and not for teacher on this stuff. So we have to. Accomplishments, you can throw in accomplishments. Any cheerleaders in here? No cheerleaders? Where are my cheerleaders? Woo! Okay. Throw cheerleading hobbies or other things that you did, because if you're doing secondary, especially in secondary, they're always looking for cheerleader sponsors, and they say, oh, she did cheerleading. Oh, okay. You know, she wasn't that great, but she's going to do cheerleading, so we got her. Okay, so, all right. So we love our cheerleader sponsors. If you were in, you know, different things, debate, all this stuff, we're always looking for those people, whatever things, maybe honors and things that you were involved in school yourself. We want to know that when we hire you, you're not just going to clock in and clock out, that you're going to be part of the students, you're going to get to know them, you're going to get involved in those activities, okay? And like I said, most of you are probably pretty involved in stuff. I had a question over here somewhere. Yes,
I was just going to ask if we're EC to 6, are those athletics and things like that
I would.
as important?
I would just list them as things that you were involved, because they want to know what kind of person that you really were, someone who really got involved in school activities, because even at elementary, they want you to help out with all that volunteer stuff, okay? It just says a lot about who you are, that you didn't just, you know, when you were in school, just clocked in and clocked out as well, okay? And then any staff development that's pertinent, if you've attended special stuff or, you know, you can throw that in there as well, all right? Limit it to 2 pages, okay? Don't give me a book. I'm not going to read that. Remember, I just go bam, bam, certification, do you have experiences? Then I check off the experiences. I don't read everything. It just tells me all I want. That resume tells me, do I want to go look at your application? And then I go to the application, okay? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, how important are the bullet points underneath, like
The bullet points in each section, yes, because it's all there. that's where you just summarize. I like bullet points. I don't like paragraphs because then I have to read stuff, and sometimes you write stuff and, okay, well, did she mean this or did she mean, I just like bullet points, sub bullet points right there where it just lists, blah, 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 did this, and it just.
Is that a good place to cut back if you need to like trim everything down? Is that the best place?
That is the best place to really narrow it down, kind of consolidate some of the stuff together. But if it has to do something that's directly with teaching, don't cut that out. My student teachers do that all the time. Well, I didn't, but you didn't list your student teaching. Well, that's not really teaching. And blah. I'm like, good grief, you've been in the classroom for 3 months. I want to know that, okay?
If we've already applied to some school districts, but we're learning a lot right now as far as our resume is concerned, and we want to redo our resume, do you know how those portals work if we?
For us, you just go log in and you go in there, update your application. You take things off. If you want to update a reference, just call the, how can I update my reference, my resume? I'm sorry, I said reference, but how can I update my resume and stuff? And they'll tell you. Yeah. And they're pretty helpful. And if they're not helpful, do you really want to work there? Okay. It's true. It goes both ways. Yes, sir.
If you have like a first aid certification, is that something you would put under certifications even though it's not necessarily teaching related?
Maybe other certifications, so that way it doesn't confuse that, because I get that all the time. Ours require a certificate or something, your ACP letter or whatever, and when I open up that document, what do I get? First aid certificate. And that just drives me nuts. So I just code that. I don't go back and look at it because I'm like, come on. Or they just put another copy of the resume, or I'm not certified. Yes, but you're looking to be certified. So just put your ACP letter as your acceptance letter. And if you get your statement of eligibility, how many of you already have statements of eligibility? Great. All of that's in your intern portal. Talk to them. Statement of eligibility says we're stating that you are now eligible for hire. In other words, you've passed your test or done what you need to do. You've taken the coursework. You've done everything that you need to do. Now you can do a job. Some of you are just starting, so you just have a letter of acceptance. You've just been accepted in the program, and we understand that, but we just need to know where you are. Okay, the portfolio. The portfolio is just really a 3-ring binder or something where you're going to put all your stuff in, okay? You're going to have your certification information. You're going to have your ACP acceptance letter or your statement of eligibility, copies of your test scores. You're going to have the HQ letter, the highly qualified, and that's just really, that's going to be part of that same acceptance letter. Back in the day, some of that, it was a little separate, but now it's all kind of together. So as long as you have whatever Texas Teachers has for you, that's what you need to have. And have 2 or 3 just copies of that, okay, in case someone needs to see that. Transcripts, all of you have college degrees. You need to get a copy of your transcripts that has a bachelor's degree conferred, that has that date on there, okay? Order 2 or 3 copies, keep a couple, sealed. Open the other one and make photocopies of about 2 or 3 photocopies just in case. Most applications, all you're going to do is scan that in, and then you're going to just upload it. And then upon hire, that's when they'll want the one original. So don't go around giving your originals to everyone unless they absolutely say they have to have it for the application process. But for the most part, it's just Xerox copies, okay? But do have a couple of things. Okay. I went to several universities, because I got kicked out. No, you didn't. You went to several universities. Do I have to have one from every university? Well, it depends. If that final transcript where you graduated, a lot of them will have what transfer coursework, all that's already included in there. No, I don't need double. But if it doesn't have like your first 2 years, I need to know sometimes, and it's more predominant at the secondary than the elementary. If you tell me you want to teach chemistry, I want to see how many chemistry courses you've actually taught, okay? Or how many, different things. So I want to see that information. So you may want to get that, okay? Because there will be, sometimes they'll say no, but it's better to have than not to have, okay? It's just making sure that you got that. Okay, your reference information, just have a sheet in there that has their contact information, phone numbers, email addresses, personal cell stuff, whatever you need to do to get hold of them. Okay, but I do care, I really do. Cover letters. If you're not a creative writer, please don't try to be. Okay, because I'm a former English teacher, and it just drives me nuts when people think they're being cute, and they're not. And so your resume is just a short version of your application, okay? It just highlights your application. Your cover letter should highlight your resume. Very short, concise. Just keep it simple, what you're trying to do, what you bring to the table. My training experience, my corporate training experience where I trained multiple people, employees, supervised them, and created modules and blah, blah, blah. You know, that expertise. Turn it into your expertise because it's the same thing, okay? It's the same skill, just in a different setting. That's what you want to bring in there. It's kind of like your little commercial that you did. Just really keep it nice and short. Yes, ma'am.
I've been addressing my cover letters to the head of fine arts in the districts I'm applying to. Is that appropriate?
If that's where it's going to, and you're art or music. Yeah.
And so for the job fairs, is that, you know, on the cover letter, you say, dear.
Yeah, I would just put to whom it may concern, blah, 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 this and that. And because it's just a quick introductory thing. It's just a short version of your resume. It's that little 15-second commercial, okay? Really keep it short. I had a stay-at-home mom. She was creative, and she wrote a quick little thing. Stay-at-home mom responsible for this, this, and that, planning daily activities for children, blah, 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 supervising and organization of my husband's this and that. And I mean, she took all the skills that are required for teaching and kind of, in a funny way, related them directly to her stay-at-home thing. It was so well done. I really liked it. So I said, I've got to call this lady in because, you know, and she was adorable. I sent her out to a campus. She was hired the next day, and but she was able to just do that and with humor, do the whole thing. So don't overdo yourself like that woman that I had fought with Caesar and done all this stuff and a crazy thing. But just stick to the facts. Keep it short. Keep it sweet. Okay. Sample lessons. You'll want to have copies of your sample lesson plans on there because sometimes they're going to ask you in an interview to present a lesson, and then you get your portfolio and you use it as show and tell. Sure, absolutely. You know, every time they ask you something, oh, sure, absolutely. And you open it up because you're going to go, oh my God, listen, you're going to be freaking out, and that's okay. Just open that and say, I've got a lesson right here. And you open it up, and then you start talking, and then you're looking, and then that keeps you on track. Because otherwise you're going to start trying to memorize it. You're going to forget. You know, you don't do this every day, so it's not going to come to you naturally. Okay? So then so you're going to go there, oh, wait a minute. Then I would have the anticipatory, oh, did I mention whatever? You're going to be all rattled. Okay, so just get it, blah, blah, blah. And so you're talking and you're glancing, talking, glancing, show and tell. Get familiar with your lessons, okay? Now, should I have multiple lessons for different things? Yes, if you're a generalist, where my generalist course subject 4.8. Any 4.8, yeah, because we want to know, you know, what are your areas of focus, math, science, whatever, so have some lessons, a couple of different lessons for that. Yes, ma'am.
I just had to do that, but I also had a performance interview.
Okay.
I'm doing PE, CP12. Is that common to do a performance interview? Is that only for PE?
What was the performance interview? I
They
don't.
made me come in and teach my sample lesson to the kids for 15 minutes.
Yeah. In which school district?
Dallas.
In Dallas ISD. Yeah, they may do that. HISD, you do that and videotape yourself. They were doing that. I think they're still doing that on there.
Is
Yeah.
that common for other subjects?
It's not common for school districts just because of the time consumption. Would we rather do that? And I think Dallas, it must be a Dallas ISD thing because some guy kept thing. Well, let me know when you want to fly over to Dallas and come sit in my classroom because I want you to watch it. Well, yeah, like the district's going to give me all that money to fly over there, get a hotel, take the day, and go watch you teach for 30 minutes and then fly all the way back to Houston, you know, and miss 2 days of work. It's not going to happen, and he was just not happy about that. But yeah, I would say that's more odd than
I
normal.
know at a teacher fair at HISD, one of the schools asked if I would be willing to do that too.
And they may, and it's going to be very
Depends on the
specific.
district.
Yes.
What if you're still very new, where all you've done is maybe tutor or substituting, have never created lessons yourself?
Yeah, that's going to be part of your training, okay? And they're going to work with you on that, okay? That's in a module to come, okay? All right.
Would you also recommend sending a letter of interest to the, if you want to work at a certain school, sending a letter of interest to the principal?
You can. An email is always a good thing, I think, because letters of interest, because the principal can delete it if they don't want it, okay? Which is true, because I get bombarded with stuff. Oh, I just applied, and here's my resume, and it's got all these attachments, and I just go delete. Great, you just applied. Great, it's in the application on there. But at the school district, when I was at a campus, when it got to July, someone emailed me and go, oh, you're available? Oh, and you're in the area? Oh, cool, let me look at it. So it's really all about timing. Right now, I would not. I would just go through the regular application process, okay? But your portfolio, make sure you have that together. Okay, sample lessons, philosophy of education, do you need that? It needs to include all kids can learn and, you know, those kinds of things. Go in there. I don't do it, but some people do. I don't read those because most of the time you went and Googled something and pasted it and changed it and did the whole thing. So, and they all look the same. So I'm just like, and I know I've had to do it, and it's kind of like, really, you know, I did the same thing, go and found a philosophy of education. Oh, this looks good, and put it in there, okay? But we do want to know that you care about kids and that all kids can learn, okay, on there. All right. Okay, the interview, different interview settings. Sometimes it's, right now, you go to a job fair, it's going to be with an HR person, or it could be a principal, so it's going to be very, very, very different, okay? Because the HR person, we're looking to see where you are in certification and what you bring to your table, bring to the table for our district, okay? That's what we're looking for at job fairs and HR, okay? And then, of course, in the back of our mind, we have an idea of which vacancies we're trying to fill that week. You know, luckily, you're here in Houston where there are lots and lots of jobs, okay? In other areas, there are not so much, okay? Down in the valley, I just came back from the valley yesterday, but there's people there who graduated last August, went through the traditional route and still don't have jobs, okay? When we go up north to Michigan, I have people who have been substituting for a year or two and they're finally going, okay, I'm ready to move. I'm like, yeah, come to Houston. Because in the Houston area, we hire about 8,000 teachers a year. There are not 8,000 student teachers, traditional route teachers in this area, okay? So the jobs are there. You just have to be in the right area, okay? So at a job fair, you could get pulled aside and interviewed right then and there, okay? Gulf Coast Job Fair coming up in June, like June 9th or 10th or somewhere in there. There's an elementary day and a secondary day on there. We split it up this year, but a lot of those will be hiring on the spot. You have to bring game on that day, okay? You can't come in there going, well, you know, I just joined, you know, I listened to Mr. Martinez. I was a little confused about, okay, I don't want you already, okay? Everything about you says that, you know, you're not a go-getter. You didn't go do what you're supposed to do. It's game on when you go to those job fairs. Well, and I get this, I'm not really ready to interview. I just came here. Then why are you here? Well, I don't know if I'm ready to teach or not. I actually get those comments. You know, it's just gonna, why are you here? Okay? And then if you're at a campus, if they invite you to a campus interview, you may be asked to go in there and do a performance, teach the kids. Okay, here, you get 15 minutes to open up this lesson and see how you do. Those kinds of things. But most of the time, not. That's probably not going to happen. But you're going to be meeting with the team, and maybe sometimes in elementary you're going to be meeting with a parent, because those parents want to know, especially if it's a pre-K position, okay? Because then those parents go report to the other parents. Oh, she's lovely, or oh my God, she was awful. Okay, so just make sure that you're aware. It can be one person or it could be a whole group. It is appropriate to call ahead if you have a scheduled interview and say, oh, I'm just calling to see more or less how many people would be in that interview, because I want to make sure I bring up enough resumes. See how you do that? It's not about you're trying to get information from them. You just want to make sure that you're bringing enough resumes if there's going to be more than one person, two people in there. And that way that gives you a clue who they're doing. And if it is a group, if you ask the question when you're answering, it's not just answering the question to her, but you're answering to this, and you're looking around, okay? On doing that, just making sure you have contact with everyone, okay? One of the things we all want to know is, I want to know is, why do you want to be a teacher? Because you didn't go the traditional teaching route. I have a passion for teaching. Make me throw up. I've always wanted to be a teacher. Really? Then why weren't you? Okay? Some of you were already ready with that response, right? No, don't do that. And I hear principals go, oh God, if I have a passion for teaching one more time, I'm going to throw up. I'm like, yeah, the same thing. Same here. So why do you want to be a teacher? Have you seen the job market lately? Oh my God. I get that, right? Oh, I have a friend of mine, and don't y'all get the summers off? I get that. All right. Oh, I have a friend of mine teaching, and from what I see, yeah, that's not that hard. So yeah, I'm ready to give it a go. Okay. Remember, I want your professional self, not your crazy self. But unfortunately, a lot of crazy selves come in the door on doing that. So why do you want to be a teacher? Okay. Education is very, very important. It's been an important part of my life, an important part of my children's life. And because of that, I think I bring a lot, and I can add to that process. And, and in this stage of life, now that I've, gone the corporate route, and I'm my kids are grown, this and that, now I can really devote something that I can give back to the community. Those kinds of things, okay? On there. Don't start dogging the job you're in. Oh, I tried the corporate. Oh my God, have you ever worked with them? It's terrible. Because I know, teaching's. I should have gone into teaching because I just got that last week, and I heard all about how horrible corporate life is. We want to know if you've had experiences, observations. All right, now we're going to get to the part where I really, really want you to pay attention. Okay, all right. Differentiated instruction. Okay. It's just different strokes for different folks. All right? So we have different learning styles, different learning readiness, different learning abilities. All right? Okay. How many of you have already kind of studied some of these? Yeah, great. All right. Learning styles, some of you are visual learners. You like to see things. You like to see visuals, posters. All that makes a connection. You're like, oh, wait a minute, I need to see it, right? Some of you are auditory learners where you have to hear it. Some of you have to be doing it. You learn by doing, right? We used to have back in the day where the kids, great basketball players, great football players, whatever, but in the classroom they were horrible. They're like, oh, well, obviously it's because their learning style was really hands-on, because for them to memorize all those plays and do all that stuff and know what to do and all that decision making, the brain's working. It's just working in a different way. So how it was being taught in the classroom was very different on how it was being taught out on the athletic field, okay? Because that was very hands-on, and the activities were on there. So you've got to mix it up, because we've got kids that learn in all different ways, and some of them are combination learners. You know, I'm a combo auditory and visual. If I'm seeing it and hearing it at the same time, I'm really good, but I'm really much more auditory. Sometimes, how many of you talk to yourself when you're reading something, reading instructions, and you're reading it out loud, going on, so-and-so, yeah. It's that auditory piece, because you've got to hear it. Even though you're reading it, you're seeing it, you're reading it, you're going, something, okay, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. I do it all the time, but that's that auditory, okay? And then what do we tell the kids? Read silently, please. Right? We do that all the time. Oh, shh, shh, you know, you've got to do that. Well, you're going to have to come up with a way, and maybe just keep it really low. If you like to read a thing, just kind of turn the other way or talk to the thing. You know, you've got to find out something, because we're doing stuff to kids all the time, and then we don't even realize it. Okay, and we've had it done to us. Okay, so there's different learning styles. There's different learning readiness. We talked about learning readiness already a little bit. How many of you remember that? Yay! Okay, what does learning readiness mean?
Your past experiences.
Your past experiences, what you're ready to learn now based on exactly your past experiences, your exposure, what kinds of things that are going on. And it's the same way in athletics, right? If they grew up in a football family and when watching football on TV and doing the whole thing, right, and they go out and they're way much more ahead when they go try out for the team in 7th grade as the kid who has never been a part of that. And then you're going, oh, he's no good. Well, you don't know that. So that's where you're having to look at potential, those kinds of things. So you're going to have different levels of learning readiness in the classroom, based on whether they had a good teacher or not, okay? Or whether they had a substitute or not. Whether they were in this school and they taught this curriculum and now they're in a different school, the curriculum's different, you know? Everything, there's just a lot of variables on learning readiness. So, what do we do? How do we check for learning readiness? Because they come in, how am I supposed to know, you know, if they're ready for this or not? Formal assessment. A formal assessment, yeah. You can just pre-test them, give them a pre-test. You can do some warm-up activities at the beginning of class, all right? The inquiry method, where you're just asking, you're doing all kinds of things. What else? Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
Informal assessment by observation.
By observations, you have them doing stuff and you can see where they're going, all right? So, and then we're going to get to this a little bit later, but it's called a flipped classroom, okay? A flipped classroom is you flip it. In other words, you don't teach it and then give the homework. You give the homework and then you teach it. So flipped classroom is, here's the website, here's your homework. You go on there, you look at the little website, and you look at that little YouTube video, and there's tons of YouTube videos already for whatever area that you're doing. In my day, we had to do it by hand and slave away. You guys, y'all have it so easy. I'm just saying, okay? You can just go Google that, okay? And there's YouTube videos, and it'll have flipped classroom, and it'll, you know, how to do the Pythagorean theorem, you know, and you have the worksheet. So then they have to watch that other person teach or watch whatever it is, and then they have to fill it out. And then guess what? When they come into the classroom, when you're ready to teach it, what's their learning readiness level? Way up there, because they've already heard it, they're familiar with some of the terms. They may not know it completely, but at least they've been exposed to it, okay? And so then you're able to really move the lesson really forward. You're not going to be able to do flipped classroom for every lesson. I'm just going to tell you, it's a lot of work. So maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, those kind of things. When you're introducing something different, starting a new unit, you want to set that groundwork. you're going to find out that there's not enough time to teach all the things that you want to teach or that you expected to teach. So you're going to have to find creative ways. Flipped classroom is a good one. But a flipped classroom is a great way to get kids up to speed for learning readiness in your classroom. Because you don't know. There's just way too many of them sometimes, you know. And so and just by their homework, if they get it all right, you're able to see, yeah, okay, they've got a good grasp on it, or they don't, okay? So you're not, oh, you failed it. No, absolutely not. It's that their learning readiness isn't there, so it's your duty to teach that information, okay? So everyone kind of understand, have a gist of what learning readiness is about, what you're ready to learn, okay? And then learning abilities. All right. Learning abilities. Some kids process very, very slowly, or they have to hear it 2 or 3 times, and as adults, we do that. Some of us need to, if it's not auditory, then I really have to process it quite a few times on doing that. And that's all because of our learning styles and going to our learning abilities. You're going to have GT kids, okay? And the GT kids, they can connect the dots really, really fast, right? The only problem is sometimes they go really, really fast and they miss a dot, okay? And so that's, so you have to be aware of that. So you have to understand, yeah, you can move them really, really forward, but you better be checking on them to making sure that they didn't skip a dot. Then you're going to have the ones that you have to slow down and repeat the lesson, okay? So you have different learning abilities. The special ed kids, you're going to have different things for them. Your GT kids, your ELL learners, ELL, your English language learners, and those are the ones where English is not their first language, okay? So a lot of times ELL get targeted into learning abilities. Oh, they're just slow learners. No, it has to do with learning readiness for ELL, because guess what? They understand the concepts well. It's just they don't understand the vocabulary because they haven't been exposed to that. So that's learning readiness, okay? So you want to make sure that, that you make that distinction, okay? So you have English language learners, ELL learners, you have special education, you have GT. So you have all of that going on in the classroom, in every classroom, all right? So interviewing takes practice, guys. I'm just going to tell you. I don't care how natural you are. If you're not used to interviewing, it does take practice on doing that, because otherwise your mind goes blank and then you start doing and saying things. So differentiated instruction. Almost everything in that interview is going to come about, they're going to want to know about differentiated instruction. It really comes down to whether you're doing the observation thing in PE like you had to do. You know, they want to know, are you differentiating for all learners? How are you doing? And we're going to get more into routines and stuff. Now, in your homework, you were asked to list 5 reasons why kids get off task, right? Mm-hmm. And start that off task behavior. All right, raise your hand and give me one.
They're bored.
They're bored. Okay. All right, so, okay, hold on. Why are they bored? Is it any, does it have to do with differentiated instruction? Yeah. Okay. All right. So could it be learning readiness? Most of the time it is learning readiness. Number 1, they had it last year, right? Okay. Or it could be learning styles. Oh my God, are they going to, I mean, that's me at some of our meetings where I'm like, is he going to play another YouTube video? I'm like, but it's cute, it's fun. Okay, I'm over it, you know. So you have to think about these things, okay? So why are they bored? It could be learning readiness. It could be learning abilities, right? Because if they don't stuff could be repetition. Okay, so they're way above, or it could be they don't have a clue what you're talking about, right? So what happens when kids get bored? They start acting out. They find other ways to entertain you and everyone else. All right? So you're going to have to keep that in mind. So when they ask you, you know, what do you do when the kid's not participating, they're not engaged, you know, what strategies? You need to start it with, well, that starts with me, because I need to have engaging lessons that include learning readiness. So I need to know why they're not doing it. Is it because, you know, they're bored? Is it because of this, because of that? Those kinds of things. And I should be addressing that. You see how you're turning that rather than, oh, I'd go there and I'd, you know. Yeah, there's stopping the behavior is one thing, changing the behavior is something else. Okay? Because if I need you to stop, please stop doing that, I can do that. But if I want him to continuously be doing, then I'm going to have to change the behavior. Okay, so there's a difference between stopping that immediate behavior, and there's a changing the behavior. Because there are classrooms where even the bad kids behaved, right? You went to a class where even the bad kids, why? Because everything was in place. Learning, differentiated learning was going on, all this stuff was going on. So if all of that is in place, you're really going to minimize those distractions. Okay, so they're bored. What else?
They don't like the subject.
They don't like the subject. Learning styles, learning readiness, learning abilities, any of those? Could be learning styles because it's always been taught a certain way, right? Anyone have the question, the answer? Anyone? Blah, 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 you know, right? So it could be the learning styles throughout the years. It could be what? Learning readiness, because if they didn't have great teachers from the beginning, guess what? You're trying to cram a bunch of stuff down their throat that they have no idea. It's way above their heads. If they don't have the foundation, okay? And then again, it could be learning abilities, because if you're moving, if it's something that just moves really, really fast, it's going to be crazy. I had an interviewee, great kid. But when we're interviewing, she had those answers like clockwork, blah, blah, blah. But she was interviewing for an alternative school. Guess what learning readiness is at the alternative school for the most part? It's really, really low. So my thing to her was, how are you going to slow yourself down? Because you're going to have those kids on overload. At the way she goes, you know, in a GT class, it would be great because those GT kids would be going, yeah, faster, right? But in alternative school, they're going to be going, oh my God, they're going to be on overload. And you don't want to get those kids in alternative school on overload. You don't want to do that. So there's things that you have to think about that. And a lot of that comes with differentiated instruction. Okay, so they're bored. They don't like the subject. What else?
Could have something going on.
They have
something personal going on.
Something personal going on. Okay, in their own personal lives. Does that have to do with differentiated instruction? No. You're going to find most of the stuff in the classroom that's classroom stuff you're going to be able to fix, or at least give a good handle on it. You know, you're not going to fix everything, but you're going to have a good handle on it. But when it comes with personal stuff, you have no control over that, okay? But we'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay, you had their cell phones, they're distracted with other things, right? Those kinds of things. So is that differentiated learning instruction? No, that would have to be with procedures, and it's different in different schools. Yes, ma'am. They don't see the relevance, exactly. All right. Is that differentiated instruction? A lot of that with learning readiness, because you haven't tied that together. Okay. And then we can go on and on and on with it, but they're going to actually ask you questions. Okay, how are you going to make this relevant for the teaching thing? I mean, that question could come up. Okay. Then you start talking about, oh, okay, again, differentiated instruction. You need to be able to say, all right, well, differentiated instruction, yeah, that would be, I guess, learning readiness, those kind of things. So you make it a conversation, but that's how you start to learn how to speak educationese, okay? That's what we call our language, case we have our own educational language, educationese, okay? And so you start throwing, oh, differentiated instruction, absolutely. It's you know, because when you look at learning readiness, and then you're able to talk about that. Because I get this, well, how will this set me apart from the others? Well, number one, you need to know what you're talking about. That will set you apart. Just being able to talk about differentiated instruction. And guys, by no means do we expect you to go in there and know everything. But I need you to have a clue, okay? But when you have no clue, we move on, okay? So you wrote down a whole bunch of things of why they didn't, why they get off task. See how that fits into that, okay? All right. Oh, so are we kind of okay with differentiated instruction? Just different strokes for different folks. There's you want to give kids options. I'll just elaborate a little bit more on that. Sometimes they will, they do kind of like on a treadmill where you have, you know, just a regular road, and then you have the rough terrain, and then you have mountainous. They're just different levels of difficulty. So it's the same concept. And you give them, okay, well, there's 3 stacks of worksheets or 3 projects. If you just want the regular one, blah, 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 if you complete that, you know, you can get a B. If you want this one, it'll be a low A, but if you do this one, you can get the A+, you know, on that. Or you can give a, you know, or you can give them all the A's if you want. The point is, that helps you see who picks what. Mm-hmm. All right? And some kids will go, oh, they want the tough one. But don't penalize them because they took the tough one and they didn't get it right. You need to help them get it right, okay, so they can be successful, you know, because a lot of these kids, they just want to go for it all, okay? The joke is that if teachers would have been allowed to teach kids how to play video games, they wouldn't be playing them. Why? It's like, no, do that. No, you got to achieve this level first. No, you have to do this. We have to do, you know, we would have done everything. And what do? They go right for the kill, right? They go for the highest level. They're constantly doing it, resetting, doing stuff. But those of you that are baby boomers like myself, it's like, that's not how things are done. You master one thing before you can even look to see what the next thing level is. We're so programmed to do that, you know. And so, but that's just not the way the brain works. And even now, especially these kids that are growing up with technology, everything, they want it all on there. So you're going to have to be able to work within those parameters. Okay, so let's talk about classroom management. Okay, classroom management. Classroom management is managing a class, okay? Some of you tend to go right to discipline management. So if you're a manager of Walmart, what do? You have to do the schedules. You have to make sure inventory is there, making sure this is clean. There's lots of things going on, right? It's the same way in classroom management. Are you organizing your materials? Do you have engaging lesson plans? Did you differentiate? Do you have things for your GT learners? Do you have something for special ed? Your ELL learners? Do you have all this? Do you have procedures in place for how you're going to put the papers in, turn them in, how you're going to hand them back, what the grading policy is? Do you have all this stuff going on? And then do you have your rules of conduct, okay, for what thing? That's your discipline management plan, because a lot of people just want to know about your discipline management plan. But your discipline management plan, which is how you're going to keep everything in order, stems from, if you have all that other stuff in place, it's going to minimize the distractions. It's going to minimize those kids from getting off task, and everything will run smoothly. And then when you have that one kid that steps out of bounds, then you have those rules of conduct for that. Now, so classroom management starts about establishing relationships, okay? Professional relationships with students, okay? Hands-on activities, those kinds of things. Make sure they're legal hands-on activities, okay? You know, Do not get caught up in sexting or inappropriate touching. So classroom management, establishing relationships, okay? Procedures, you have to have procedures in place. How many of you have bought the Harry Wong book? Yeah. If not, pass it around, look at, it's worth looking at the first days of school. Harry Wong does a really good job of, you know, we talk about if you're looking at that, there's an app for that. Well, in Harry Wong, there's a procedure for that. Harry Wong, and that's gonna come up in some of your trainings. I think it's optional or stuff that they give you. It used to be mandatory, and now it's optional on doing that. But it's some really good stuff. Yeah, The First Days of School by Harry Wong, W-O-N-G, and it's really how to line up the kids, how to pass papers forward. You wouldn't believe just little things. Now, I can come in here without having all those rules because all of you have been in school, you've gone to college, you've done the whole thing, so you know the procedures. Those kids don't. So you have to establish those procedures from the very beginning, and you have to make sure you do those procedures every day. You can't come in and say, okay, well, today we're going to do this, and then the next day, oh, you know, I didn't really get to, I was out late last night, so I didn't really think about it. Oh, why don't we do groups today? Oh, that sounds like fun. But you have teachers like that. You do. Well, they have a free day today. I'm like, really? I'm like, well, yes, because they passed their test, and I told them they'd have a free day. And well, I'm like, that is scary, because you're messing with kids' education. Okay? So make sure that you have procedures. Make sure that you have materials in place. So that you're not saying, okay, let's all sit quietly while I set this up. Oh, yeah. You know? I'm doing that. All right? And I'm talking about procedures like elementary, right? There's a reason why we put those elementary kids in handcuffs. Don't look at me like that. You've seen them. Right? How many of you substitute elementary? Yeah, right? When you're walking them to the lunch hall. What? Okay, line up. Handcuffs on. Here we go. Right? And then now we're going to do reading. We're going to do something fun. We're going to do the, read with the big books and do our little reading centers. And they're going, yay, okay, let's get those straitjackets on. Okay? All right, come over here. What do we do? Crisscross applesauce, right? What's crisscross applesauce? Cross your feet. Cross your arm, right there. Get that straitjacket on and don't get your hand, right? What do? The minute they put their hands down, crisscross applesauce, get that straitjacket back on, right? Why? Because little kids are very handsy, right? And they get stuff. So they do all this stuff. Those are procedures that they have in place, right? And they walk in little rows and they all walk here and, and when I have to help out, I don't do well with little ones. So when I had to help out with kindergarten lunch one time, the teacher had to step out. Oh, yeah, can I help you? Oh, sure. I need to just step out for 10 minutes. Or she said 3 and it's 10. I'm not bitter. So she comes back and goes, where's my class? I said, oh, they're the ones sitting right over there on this desk. We're playing how long we can sit on our hands. I'm like, I couldn't keep them with their handcuffs on. They know how to unlock those things. And they were already pulling the show. Oh, okay, let's play a game. Can y'all sit on your hands? Let me see. Oh, I bet you can't. Oh, yes, I can. Okay, cool. Sit there. Okay, on there. So that goes also back. If you don't have experiences with children, make sure that you do at the grade level that you're doing, because you may not be cut out for that grade level. Okay, so you don't want major pain working with the pre-K kids. All right. Room arrangement. Have you thought about what your room arrangement would be? And is that, and sometimes we have our ideal room arrangement. This will happen, and then you have 40 kids. Again, I'm not bitter. In a little small cracker box room, and half those kids are choir kids, and the other ones are the varsity football team, and they all come in singing, and I'm like, oh, good grief! I had a whole year of that. Okay, so you have to really work through room arrangement to make sure that works. Lesson design, and we talked about this already. If you design a strong lesson that includes differentiated instruction where you're really focusing on that learning readiness, learning abilities, learning styles, that goes a long way with classroom management. And then, of course, discipline management, which is just your protocols for your classroom. Those need to be very simple, very short. Maybe something like you will respect, respect is one. About talking out of turn, those kind of things. Following protocols. Just keep it general, because some people get into very, very specific. That you will do this and this and blah, blah, blah. And then they have their whole list of rules, and it's crazy. They're not going to read all those rules. They're not going to remember them. Keep it really short, 3 or 4. Respect, following protocols, blah, blah, blah. What's the procedure protocol for if I don't have a pencil? What's the thing for sharpening the pencil? Can I just get up and go do it or not? What was our protocol today for going to the restroom and getting water? Feel free to do so. That's the protocol. Why? Because you're college-educated adults. I don't have to sit there and go, really? On that, okay? But it's going to be very, very different. You're not going to have that. You're going to have, this is what we do, here's when we do it, here's where we do restroom breaks, here's where we do all these kinds of things, okay? So it really comes down on that. Okay, so discipline management is just a piece of classroom management, okay? But when they ask you a question about classroom management or your discipline management plan, because some of them will go straight into discipline management. But if they ask you, about behavior, those kind of things, you need to bring it back and say that really comes back down to classroom management as a whole. I need to make sure that I have engaging lessons. I need to make sure that those activities, I'm moving those activities along and that I'm addressing learning styles. I need to make sure that it's relevant to those kids, because if I can keep them engaged, that's going to really minimize, those distractions. Okay, so it's really about minimizing distractions. And then, if they still choose to misbehave, then you have protocols for that. Okay, and different warnings at elementary. You have your green light, yellow light, red light system. Some of them have little cars. Everyone has their name with their cars on one of the little cars, and they're on the road. And when they start acting up, you just got a flat tire. In other words, it's a little warning on doing that. Okay, one of them in adaptive behavior, where it's a little bit smaller class, she has the 4 corners of her room, and the kids understand from the very beginning, if I stand over here, this is my personal space. You don't talk to me, you don't look at me, you don't do anything. In other words, you're supposed to be engaged. I'm working on something. Do not disturb. You don't want to do that for more than 3 or 4 minutes. If I'm in this corner of the room or this side of the room, then you should be all focusing, listening to me, because I'm giving instruction, I'm doing whatever. If I'm moved to that corner of the room, that means you're borderline in trouble. So there's, and I don't remember what the 4th corner was, but they did that in an AB classroom, adaptive behavior, again, because those kids their minds go very, very quickly. And sometimes they can't connect the dots. We talked about them skipping a dot here and there. So just the 4 corners, the minute they see that, they understand what's happening on there. Yes, ma'am.
So in an interview, if a question comes up, if I come into your classroom, what would I see? Would that be more like class management / whatever the lesson plan is?
It's a very good question, and I actually asked that question. If I come to your classroom, what would I see? My question is more, if an administrator comes and your department or team leader is there too, and then a parent just happens to drop by, what will all 3 of us see? Because it goes back to the whole thing. If you have the father, the middle school son, and then you have the little baby brother that's 2 years old, and you all go to a parade and come back and ask them what they saw, everyone will see different things. A little bit, I saw the balloons, I saw this, I saw that, The middle school boy will have seen all the pretty girls, they're all focusing on different things. And it's the same way. When they come in the classroom, you need to go back, if they ask you, what would I see? Well, number one, I hope you would see, a classroom that's very engaging, that I have that are differentiated instructions going on, and that I'm meeting the objectives of the day. So you're going down this whole little list of things, okay? And that classroom management is running like clockwork. That there's great relationships with my kids. That the materials are in place. That the activities are age appropriate and the pace is appropriate, that I'm moving things along and I'm not going too fast or too slow on that, okay? So that's a very, very good question. So all of this comes into classroom management, okay? Does that make sense a little bit? Okay, cool. All right. Lesson design. And some of you have already covered this. How many of you have already covered lesson design? And I'm just going to throw out some things out there. When you're creating a lesson, you want to plan backwards, okay? And you're probably going to get the Madeline Hunter lesson plan design, and it'll be a little bit different, which Madeline Hunter is really, really great for beginning teachers because it's very, very structured. But it's not the only way. I heard one principal a year ago say, remember when we used to do Madeline Hunter? Oh my God, because that's old school, but it's still good school, okay? So don't worry about that. But it's really about planning backwards. Number one, what are the 4 or 5 things that they have to, at the end of the week or at the end of the unit or the end of 3 days, that they actually have to master, okay? That's going to set them up for strong learning readiness when they go to the next school year, okay? So, you have to identify that first, because you need to know what should you really be focusing on. Because we get so caught up in trivia as teachers and as educators, because I know my subject and I want them to know it as much, and so we're really playing Jeopardy, in the classroom with them, stuff that they're never going to know. And now, guess what? These kids are growing up differently. Don't teach the kids of tomorrow the way you learned yesterday. Okay? Don't teach them for a world that's already gone. You have to teach them to get them ready for a world that's to come in the future. All right? How many of you remember 8-track tapes? Anyone? Anyone own an 8-track tape? Woo! We were styling. Okay? And then came the cassettes and the CDs. Everything is now moving really, really fast, on your cell phones. If it's more than 3 years old, it's almost obsolete with all the new stuff that's coming up. It's like, sometimes I'm like, oh, mine's out of date. Mine doesn't do that, on that, because nothing's compatible. You go there, oh, no problem. I went to hook up a monitor, and it's incompatible with a new thing. I'm like, oh, really? I just got this 3 years ago. That's okay. It was 5 years ago. All right, I know. Okay, so you have to teach for the future. So you're going to have to change your mindset just a little bit. Okay, so what is it that they're going to have to learn to get them ready for the future? Those were things. Okay. Then what instrument am I going to assess them with? Okay. That's the most important piece. All right. How am I going to test them? Are they going to write an essay? Are they going to have to graph? Are they going to have to do multiple choice? Are they going to have to jump up and down 5 times? Are they going to have to, because in PE, in elementary maybe, they have to jump rope 5 times, What is it that they have to do to prove to you that they have those 4 or 5 things down? Okay? You establish that instrument first, and then you start planning backwards. So if they have to do this and prove this to me on Friday, then on Thursday, what do they have to know? Oh, for them to do that on Thursday, what do they need to know on Wednesday? On Tuesday, oh, that means on Monday I have to get all the way this, from A to F on Monday to be able to pick up after that on Tuesday, right? Who does that? Coaches. That's who's been doing that all along, right? Because why? Where's the test? Friday night football, right? And it's not, guess who gets to see the results of the test? Everybody, right, gets to see it, right? Coaches have been doing that for years and years and years and years. They know the test is on Friday. They're going to have to know offense. They're going to have to know defense. They're going to have to know. Any of you coach 7th grade football? None of you had the pleasure of coaching 7th grade or Little League, or any of you coached Little League or those little football leagues or anything like that? Yeah, it's crazy, because what's the main thing? You don't want them to embarrass you, right? So when the first thing comes out, the first game comes out, you at least want them to know how to walk out on the field and walk out. They may not know once they get there, but I tell you what, those parents are going to be so proud taking pictures. Oh, look at him. He knows just what he's doing. No, he doesn't. You know. There's all those things. What's going to be the test, right? And then you work backwards. Now, teachers for a long time have been teaching planning forward, right? And then they get to Thursday. Oh, don't worry about that. That's not going to be on the test. How many of you have heard that? That's not going to be on the test. Why? Because the teacher didn't get to it. Why? Because the teacher did not plan backwards. They ran out of time. So what happened? What happened to your learning readiness? Guess what? You just missed a whole section. And then you went the next school year, and then they're going, oh, how many of you studied this? Y'all didn't? Okay, I'm going to have to reteach. Why are we reteaching? Because it wasn't taught, in the grade before. Remember we talked about learning readiness? We like to blame the kids. Oh, he's dumb. Oh, they're not very smart. No, it has to do with learning readiness most of the time. All right? So you plan backwards to make sure that you get to those topics. I don't have enough time to teach that. Well, then you have to reevaluate what it is that they really need to know to make them successful at the next level. Okay? Because you can't, sometimes you're going to have to sacrifice a few little things. Oh, then I won't be able to do my favorite activity because I loved doing that when I was in 7th grade. Oh, too bad. Okay? It's no longer about you. It's about those kids. All right? Now, which brings me back to that assessment piece, that assessment instrument. Remember we created that at the very beginning? Okay, so if they're going to have to jump up and down 5 times on Friday, hopefully they have been jumping up and down every day since then, right? If your test is going to be a multiple choice, then your warm-up activity or your exit activity every day should be a short multiple choice test, right? If they're going to have to graph on Friday, then you should be graphing every day, not the whole period, just to keep them, keep their head focused on what a graph looks like. The thing that really bothers me the most is that we teach them this, we do labs, right? At high school, chemistry labs, we do all this stuff, great. And then come Friday, write a short paragraph or write a short essay over what the meaning of this or photosynthesis is and blah, 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 blah. Okay? Well, if you're an English person, that's great. But what about your poor writers? What about your ELL kids who don't have the vocabulary? What is going to happen to them? They're going to fail. And then what are you going to think? Oh, well, they just didn't get it. Well, it has nothing to do with whether they got it or not. You set them up for failure. Okay? You let the assessment instrument get in the way of what they've learned. So you're getting this false read and you're getting this feedback that, oh, they don't know the stuff, and then you go back and reteach it, and now what happens? They already had it the first time. They're bored. So now things get really, really crazy, and now you have chaos in the classroom. Why? Because your assessment instrument should reflect somewhere through the teaching all during the week, so that way the kids don't get caught up. The minute they see the graphing, oh, I don't know how to do graphs, so they give up, right? So they have no idea on there. So you have to come up with different ways of doing that. How many of you hate true-false tests? Any of you? Just a few? Just a few? I hate true-false tests. Why? Because if you say true, they always have a reason why it's false. And if you say false, yes, but you didn't see that word "and" in there, and you see, and blah, 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 right? And then when you read into it, because that happens to me, I read it, oh, it has that, oh, so it probably could be, so I'll go ahead and put true or put false, one way or the other. Come on, you guys, y'all are reading way too much into it. You know, you're not reading enough into it, or you're reading way too much. So if you're one of those going to have true false in there, make sure you're doing true false throughout the week so people kind of have an idea how your mind works, because it's your test, you know, because different people see the world differently and how we think. And so, so that's where that instructional instrument, that assessment instrument, you want to make sure that you have it, you're using it throughout the week so you're not surprising the kids. And so when the kids come, it's okay if they all pass. Okay? That means you did your job, you know? I had a class where it was a really difficult thing and they all passed, and whenever I said, you know, the problem is I thought at first the test was too easy. And they go, no, but that wasn't right. I said, and then it started hitting me, well, maybe y'all are just a really smart class. And they go, yeah. And I said, no, but then I thought about it, no, that's not right. I said, there's only one conclusion. I'm a great teacher. And they're all like, boo, boo. But it really had to do with that. You know, I had really high success rate because everything was, if you already have your assessment instrument, and are you teaching to the test? Well, the test is about that concept. So you're not actually teaching that test, but you are creating that concept and you're showing them how it's going to be assessed. Okay? That's what scares you right now, those of you that are going to take your test. It's not the content. It's how they're going to ask it, in what format, and am I supposed to overthink it or underthink it? Am I supposed to take that question at face value or overwrite? That's probably thing, and that's why, you know, you have your jitters, but you'll be fine, right? Yeah, you'll be fine. Okay. So does that make sense about lesson design, about doing that? All right, and then while you're doing that, then after you finally decide what has to be taught, then you have to decide how you're going to teach it. Now you go back to differentiated instruction and how you're going to involve all of this stuff. See how your interview now becomes a lot more interesting? Because you're able to talk about things. Because they're going to ask you, oh, design a lesson. Oh, well, I would teach this. And then you start doing all this other stuff. But it's really about having procedures, having a plan in place, how to include it. Okay? And how things are handled, whether discipline management. If I'm doing this, the kids aren't going to be frustrated. If they're not frustrated, that's going to lower that level of anxiety. Okay? So it's really about minimizing those distractions, minimizing that anxiety level, and having good relationships, again, with those kids. Because if the kids don't respect you, they don't have to love you, but if they don't respect you, they're going to tune you out. Okay? If you don't respect me, this is voluntary. You know, you could come here on a volunteer basis today. It's not mandatory, right? You can walk out at any time. So if you don't respect what I'm having to say, or you think, oh, that man is crazy, blah, 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 you're up and out of there. You're like, oh, I just got the call. Oh, I got to get out of here. And that's what kids do, except they can't up and leave. They just shut down and start causing problems on doing that, okay? So be nice to the kids. You know, I don't want you to be their friend, you know, of just being best buddies, but get to know them. Find out what they're about, okay? Pacing, sequencing. Pacing is just the pace of the lesson. Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Okay? It's just like running. You know, keep up the pace on there. All right? What's the thing with the eye vision, the owl, you know, at the end where he says, keep up, where that guy's who, you know, and finally he says, keep up, please. You know, it's the same way. Are you doing the appropriate pacing? Okay, because if you go too fast, you're going to lose those ELL and those GT kids. If you go too slow, you're going to lose those, the ELL and special ed. If you go too slow, you're going to lose those GT kids. So you've got to learn how to do this, do that, and have different things for them, different activities and different opportunities for the different students. Don't give them more busy work. How many of you got lots of busy work when you were in school? Yeah, just because you finished your stuff. Okay, now do this activity. You got more busy work. You know, please give them another thing that takes them to the next level. Okay, and we'll talk about a little bit of those things in a minute. Transitions, make sure transitions are really, really important. That's all in Harry Wong's stuff about when we're going from this to this, how do we do it? All right? Elementary, they've got that down. We're going to our reading centers. Here we go. First row, come up here. Crisscross applesauce. Okay? And I'm just lying there. We don't really put them in straitjackets, okay? Or do we? Okay? There's procedures for that, right? When they're going to lunch. Here we go. Here, this is how we do it. Why? Because we're trying to minimize its distractions so they're not pushing each other, grabbing each other. Little boys love to pull on little girls' hair. All kinds of things, but you know, secondary is the same thing. They love to talk. So what do we do? How are we doing it? When, you know, our transitions, here's, you know, when you were doing partners thing, then it's just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But you, again, you're college educated adults. You kind of know what to do. It's a transition. Now this is how we do pair share and then go right back to large group, okay? And large group, it's not always ideal, but unfortunately, I can do this again because you're college-educated adults. You're not going to have that same privilege of being able to do that. So you're going to have to really work more on small groups on doing that. Okay. Grouping, small group versus large group. If you do small groups, you've got to be able to monitor all of them. Okay. On their when I used to teach at Advanced Spanish, I had 3 groups. I had my group that were on listening stations, and so they had their little headphones on, right? They had their headphones on, and they were doing their work. I had the other group that was working on vocabulary and their translations, that they had the grammar piece that they had to work, and then I had the group that was working on oral, and so they were with me. And so we do that, blah, blah, blah. And then after 10 minutes, guess what? All the groups rotated. So you don't want to keep them for long periods of time doing that, which is, again, we're here 3 hours. I can't keep you seated the whole time. So we have to stand up. We have to do that. I have to switch your partners. I have to do kind of just little things that I can do in a large group setting to keep you engaged, okay, on doing that. So it's the same way with kids on doing that. When you're doing groups, you've got to have some kind of procedure in place. Of course, in their mind was, when they didn't do that, I flipped the lights. That means go back to your seats. We're going to go old school, drill and kill. You know, we did that a couple of days, and then it's like, okay, when we can handle groups again, we'll do it. You know, and so of course, they want to do groups because they don't like the old drill and kill. We hated the drill and kill. Okay, so if they want to do and move around and get those kinds of things, then you have procedures for that. Bloom's taxonomy. How many of you have already touched on Bloom's taxonomy? A few of you have, and that's really the level of higher order thinking skills. The most basic one is just information, okay? Where they just tell you this is what's happening, this is the date, the War of 1812 was fought on this day, who were the major players, blah. It's just information, okay? Just basic, flat-out information. What you do with that information, now you're going up on Bloom's taxonomy into the application. How does that apply? You're going to have to do that with those kids. Someone over here was talking about the relevancy and taking it to the next level with those kids, okay? Application, synthesis, compare and contrast, you know, how did the civil rights movement or Martin Luther King compare and contrast to the Black Lives Matter movement now? You know, those kind of things. You're not just saying this is what happened and this is what happened, but how did it apply back then? How does that apply now? What are there differences? What has changed? Those things. You're taking it higher up, and that's in anything you're doing. Okay, we talked about differentiated instruction, and I told you what learning styles were: learning readiness, learning abilities. Just basically, that's information. But how you would use that in a classroom with ELL learners? How does that goes with GT kids? How does that do with special ed? Now you're getting up into application, okay? And then we're doing synthesis on if this kid is doing this, is it learning readiness, learning styles? And you see how you're taking it to a different level. So you're taking that information up. So make sure that you understand that I don't want you to walk in there and pretend you're an expert on Bloom's taxonomy. Please don't do that. And say, oh yes, I know all Bloom's taxonomy, because you don't. You're aware of Bloom's taxonomy. You're aware of Bloom's taxonomy, and you're going to have to really continue to work in that area, but you understand that you need to take it past just the information, so the knowledge base, take it more into application, include some of this stuff, for example, and then you just give it within, if I'm looking at learning readiness, what would that look like for my ELL kids? And then you just talk just briefly about that. Don't go on and on and on, okay? Because don't talk yourself into circles. Just be very concrete, but be able to just address that just a little bit, okay? All right. Because we have teachers that still don't understand Bloom's taxonomy. They just get up there, want to lecture, and just give out the facts on doing that. Social studies people have been doing that for a long time. That's why I hated social studies when I was a kid. ACT, my social studies score was horrible on the ACT exam. I went to college, had a wonderful, wonderful professor, and just fell in love with social studies at the college level, where I hated it the whole time because it was just kind of just dates and names and blah, 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 and memorizing this and that, and it's just, you know, and worksheets and color this map, and it was just, you know, it was just crazy. But then I went to college, and my professor really differentiated, had all kinds of stuff, had videos, and brought it to life, and then of course he'd run around shouting and screaming and spitting and thing, but it was real, okay? So any social studies people in here? Cool, cool. There's I just went blank. History Alive. Google that. It's History Alive ! For your social studies people. It's how to bring different projects and things on doing that, how to bring materials into your classroom. So if you're doing Life on the Prairie during the settlement, you know, and the rush and all this stuff, you know, in the wagon trains and all that stuff, and then you go, oh, we're going to do the thing, we're doing a section of Life on the Prairie, so everyone, we're doing what, churning milk and making ice cream and making little prairie dolls and stuff. You're giving those kids a false sense that Life on the Prairie, that's what it was all about, sitting around, you know, churning butter, oh, isn't it fun, and making prairie dolls and those kinds of things. Because Life on the Prairie was very, very hard. You know, that was their little moments of time where things were actually nice and sweet. But it was dangerous, it was hard work, it was chores, it was all kinds of things. So bringing excerpts from different people of how they talk about what went on, and, you know, in different perspectives, and letting them know this is what really life was like, okay? Because we like to really kind of sensationalize and make everything really nice and pretty and cute, and it's not. It's the realities of doing that. Okay. Instructional strategies. They may ask you, list 3 or 4 or 5 instructional strategies that you would use in your classroom. Okay. Remember, you guys are really, really lucky. Just go in there and do a search. Instructional strategies for teaching middle school math. Instructional strategies for teaching blah, blah, blah. And a whole bunch of stuff is going to come up. Okay? You're going to learn some of those. Some of those are just generic strategies for all things, for all coursework and content. Some of them are going to be very specific, like History Alive, those kinds of things. But, you know, one of the strategies, of course, is just to make it relevant. You know, coming up with stuff. And like I said, I can't get into each one because there's just so many content levels represented here today. But making it relevant to 7th grade math, doing those kinds of things. Instructional technology, using instructional technology as a tool to get them. Using flipped classrooms to help with learning readiness. That's another strategy. Okay, so make sure that you go into their Google that. You have homework to do, guys, on this stuff. Because once you interview with the school district, you get an interview score. And you're going to ask, oh, what score did I get? We're not going to tell you. Okay? So don't even ask. You get an interview score, or you're going to get rated some way. If you don't score high enough, you're pretty much sunk. You're one and done. Okay? And then you're going, well, I haven't gotten any calls. Well, maybe because you went in there, did an interview, and you blew it. So you need to remember, game on. Okay? So kind of know your stuff when you're doing that. Okay, instructional websites. Go in there and just put instructional technology for teaching whatever your content is. There's a lot of stuff out there, okay? I think there's one called Kahoots, and I'm not sure how to spell it, but everyone uses it. And a lot of where the kids can go in there, and you can do that as a flipped classroom where you can give them an assignment, go into Kids or whatever, and go into this one, and it's going to type in this, here's the URL, and work on this problem, and then tomorrow we're going to do that. You give them ahead of time. A lot of them will do it with for reinforcement for ELL kids come in after school. They give them a step where they can go in there and they get more practice. There's no way you can keep coming up with worksheets. You'll be working all night, all day, all weekend. You can't do it. You'll burn yourself out. You've got to now, there's a lot of stuff now with instructional technology, instructional websites for free where kids can go in there and do work. A lot of your campuses and school districts will already have stuff in place for that as well. Use it. You can use it for as a flipped classroom to give them stuff, or you can use it to help them catch up. All right, and you can use it for homework, those kinds of things. You can also use it in your classroom when kids finish and complete their work. Rather than more busy work, you give them something different at a higher level, okay, a little more difficult. Yes, ma'am.
Is it safe to think that they have access to that in their homes? Technology? I mean,
So that's a very, very, very good question. What if the kids don't have access? So you're going to have a plan for them to come in early, before school, during lunch, after school. I had one teacher that was interviewing, and I asked her the same question. Well, what do you do? Because she did flipped classroom, like every 2-3 weeks. So what do you do with the kids that don't have access to? And she goes, well, what I do is I actually record it on a CD, and I have that available for them prior. So I just make some copies, 3 or 4 copies, and so they can go, because they all have that. She goes, but the minute I handed them out, nobody wanted to be seen carrying around a CD. So, the kids these days, so they quickly found a friend or found someone or came in and did that. So there's ways around it. But, you may have to have a special time for that. So it's a very, very good question. Don't assume that they all do. It's a very good point. Okay? All right. Instructional websites, we talked about flipped classrooms. We talked about, again, make sure, don't just pick something out, make sure you look at it yourself if you go on there and you're using someone else's, because some of them are really good, some of them are really bad, okay? Because I've seen some of them, oh, I did a thing on flipped classroom. I'm going, really, you shouldn't have, you were doing so well till I saw that. Then now I really got to see how you're doing it, okay? Because it was very, very boring on doing that. Okay, so just be aware of that. Okay. And make sure that in the lesson design you include some kind of closure, real world experiences, and it's tied to student interest. So if you're doing percentages, okay, and you've got a lot of the basketball kids in there, okay, what's the percentage of so-and-so, LeBron James, what if he shot this many times and he only made this time, what's the percentage of shots made during the first quarter? What's the percentage in the second quarter? And then how did that affect the game when they start looking at percent? See how you're taking it to a different level, even though that's not really, you're just really working on percentages. Then if you get to probabilities, okay, if his percentage is this, this, and this, what's his probability if it's 2 seconds left, he's on the free throw line that he's going to make that free throw if his free throw percentage is here, Okay, why do they foul Dwight Howard all the time in the with 3 minutes left to go, right? And they're catching and the other team's behind, and fouled Dwight Howard. Why? Because his percentage of free throw making is so bad. So even if he makes one, that's okay. You know, they can live with that because they're hoping to go down there and score 3 on a three-pointer. So you see how you're making it relevant. That's what the coaches do in the NBA and all this stuff. Everything is about statistics and relevancy and pulling data on there. Okay, so lesson design, we kind of have an idea, we have a clue. Like I said, that's a whole other training, but at least I want you to have an idea on that. Okay. Okay, assessment needs to be data-driven. There's formative, which is the informal. There's summative, which is the formal. The formative is what you're formulating. You're formulating along the way. Okay, those are things that you're just getting. That's where I'm watching you, and you're saying yes, no. I'm watching her notes, what she's doing. I'm watching you. I'm doing that. We're having conversations. You're asking me a question. So I'm getting feedback all the time. Because that's the question I ask. How do you keep a pulse on the learning that's taking place? And I expect to hear all the different things that you are aware of that's going on. You have to be aware of everything that's going on. Some teachers just get up there and they teach and they're just oblivious that the kids don't have a clue what's going on. Okay? So that should tell you whether you need to mix it up, change it up, speed it up, do those kinds of things. All right? So those are formative assessments. There's a thing called zip grading sheets. Any of you heard about ZipGrader? ZipGrader.com. I think it's like $7, $8 a year to do that. It's basically like the old Scantrons. It's multiple choice, and you can do 100 questions or you can do 5. But you can throw stuff on the board to pre-assess to see what their learning readiness is, see where they are, and they just do multiple choice. Oh, it's answer A, and number 2 is B, whatever, blah, blah. And then you have the app on your cell phone, or you have it on the document camera, and then you just go through there. As they're done, they raise their hand, you go there, you just scan it, and boom, you get instant feedback right there, how many they got right, whatever. And I think it throws out on the classroom how many. So you can also use it at exit tickets. Okay, so we covered that, and here's 5 problems, blah, blah, blah. You know, come there, and as you're going out the door, show me your little thing, and you just scan it. So that gives you an idea as a teacher, I did a really good job, or oh my God, they didn't get it at all. Yeah, technology, it's just, I'm like, where was all this when I was grading papers, you know, on this stuff. But there's gradecam.com as well. It's another one I've heard that are using. But anyway, it's stuff to look at. You know, there's one where they scan. There's a card or whatever, and then depending on which way you do it, it scans and it gives you instant feedback. Smart boards do a lot of that stuff as well. I need to get Texas teachers to buy some smart boards and give you guys smart board training, because that's really one of the things to do, or at least have something on their website that kind of shows you a video of because you're going to be expected to use those smart boards on doing that. And plus they're fun. I don't know how to, because that was before my time, and now everybody uses them, but I got to make sure that everyone does do that. And I see it used, and I go into classrooms and I watch it, but I personally have never done it on there. Because when I do it, I always push the wrong thing, and then I take it to the wrong thing. So I'm like, okay, because my hands are kind of spastic up there. Okay, and summative, that's your formal. Those are your big projects, your big tests on Fridays, those kinds of things. All right, decision-making process. They want to know, number one, how your mind works. Okay? So they're going to ask you, how do you deal with this student? How do you deal with a coworker? What do you do with the team member? What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. Okay? It's nothing more than decision-making process. And decision-making process starts with identify the problem. Okay? It's identify the problem. Because what's the first thing people start doing? They just start answering. Oh, it's this, blah, blah, blah. You don't even know what the problem is. Okay, what do you mean you don't know what the problem is? So, if I ask you, you have Joey in the 3rd grade class, And then one day or today he picks up a chair and starts and flips it over. What do you do? And that's actually a real question from one of the school districts. So what did I say the first step in decision making is? Identify the problem. Before you start answering, because I always like to ask, okay, what do you do? And then I start getting this and that, and I get someone of like, oh, call the AP, oh, the other one, oh, get the other, you know, oh, you tackle him. I get all kinds of responses on there. But we have to first identify the problem, and that problem is, the question is, why is Joey throwing the chair, flipping the chair over? Why is Joey flipping the chair over? What's Joey flipping the chair? He's angry and frustrated about what? But who's he angry at?
Teacher or
He's angry at the teacher or a friend, someone in the classroom.
Yes.
Okay? Why did he flip the chair over?
He's off his meds.
He's off his meds.
They are.
Yeah. Why did he flip the chair over?
Didn't get his way.
Didn't get his way, so he's just throwing a tantrum. Okay? Why did he flip the chair over?
maybe there was a bug under it.
Maybe there was a bug and something scary. He hates bugs, yeah. You never know why. You've got to figure out very quickly. You don't have much time to figure it out. All right? This gentleman says he's off his meds. He knows Joey, right? Remember we talked about establishing relationships, knowing the kids. He knows Joey. Ooh, Joey must be off his meds because this is not normal behavior unless he's off his meds. Okay? Joey could be an ED student, emotionally disturbed student. Okay? So, if any of you had opportunities to work with ED kids, if not, you're in for a treat. You said the wrong buzzword. You said look, and he doesn't like that word look. And anytime you say look, it just throws him into a tantrum. And so the minute you said, okay, kids, look at the board, you go, ah! He flips the chair, and then you go, oh, I said the word look. Oh, sorry, Joey. And then you can get it back, okay? So you need to know why it is he flipped it over. And if you know Joey, if this is something that Joey, you know, can probably do, or will do because of his situation, then you know, okay, this isn't, we don't need to all freak out here. It's just Joey. Okay, you know how to handle that, okay? Or he's off his meds. Oh, let's get you over to the nurse. Hey, here we go. Let's get you over here. You know, we probably have another pill to give you or something. You know, there's just ways to do that. But if Joey's a good kid, not saying that the other Joeys weren't good kids, but if Joey's a really good kid, he's a model kid, he's always doing that, he's always attentive, he's your little helper, he distributes papers for you, and he flips the chair over, that's different. Because that came out of nowhere. All right? So now you're going to know something is terribly wrong. And guess what? You probably don't know how to handle it right then and there. Because the other Joey, you know, this is what we do, blah, blah, blah. So you're going to have, if you have an ED student in class, you're going to have procedures. And okay, when I say this code, this is what we do. Everyone gets up, moves to the side of the room, does whatever, and then we file out, or we go into Miss Smith's class across the hall. Because you know something can happen. So you have procedures already in place. You don't wait till it happens and go, okay, everybody, y'all get over there. You just say, whatever, calmly, they know what to do. Remember, we practice, and you practice it. Kind of like a fire drill. You know, they know what to do. But in this case, again, you probably want to already have something like that in place because you don't know what Joey's going to do because this is so unlike Joey. You need people to get, first of all, safety is the most important. Kids' safety is the most important thing in the classroom, okay, that they feel safe. Up against the wall, away from one. And then you're going to have to gather more information, okay? And then you need to know who your resources is. Remember we talked about Miss Smith across the hall? She's a resource because she can take those kids in there because you may have to do that. Sometimes in 7th grade, somebody gave Joey a little pill. Oh, take this. This is a little aspirin, and it turns out to be drugs or whatever. So he may be going crazy, and he's hurting himself. You may have to restrain him. There's all kinds of things that can be happening. But in calling the assistant principal, that may be one of them, depending on the situation. So don't get caught, because it's a trap question. They want to know, how many times are you going to be sending kids to the office? Or is it something that you should be handling in the classroom yourself? Okay, does that make sense on that? So they're going to ask you the same thing with a teacher. You're working next door to the teacher. Y'all are supposed to be working on this group thing together, assessment, and the other teacher's not doing it. What do you do? So again, you have to what? Identify the problem. Why are we not on the same page? And that answer could be, maybe there's a miscommunication of what the expectations are. Maybe she thinks, maybe I said something to indicate that I was going to do it. Or maybe there's a misunderstanding that it was optional. Maybe, and then if it comes out to her not really wanting to do it or him not wanting to really share, then we have to have conversations, and then it proceeds like that. So we're looking for a method to your madness, okay? That's what we're looking for when we ask those types of questions. Okay, we want to make sure that you're just not off in another world and going off on tangents. Oh, this and that. Oh, yes, because, I was substituting. And don't start with all those stories. I was substituting just the other day, and I had a teacher, and I just asked for a simple lesson plan. And you know what she told me? And, and I already told her, I'm not substituting at that school again. But that's why I'm coming to your school district. And I'm just going, oh, my God. That's all that's running through my head. Okay? So just be professional, be sane, be methodical in your responses, okay? Show some personality, please, okay? Smile sometimes, look serious sometimes. You got to mix it up, because if you're serious all the time, I'm thinking, oh, good God, who would want to work with that person? And if you're just ha all the time, I'm like, can this person ever get serious? Nothing's ever going to get done. So you got to mix it up, okay? On doing that. But we do have to have things. Don't be a robot. Will you? Yes. Will you differentiate, or how will you differentiate? Well, yes, I would differentiate in the class. I would have different activities. I don't, it's just very robotic, and so we don't want that. And conflict resolution, same thing. How will you handle a situation? You can just Google conflict resolution. There's like steps on things that you have to encounter. And again, it's always about, having resources, talking it out, and then coming to a compromise. What can you live with? What can you can't? Because you're not going to be able to do that all the time. What do you do with a kid that's constantly doing outbursts all the time? Well, I would send them to the AP, because I would write them up. Because if I already talked to them, you need to get to know your kids, because it could be one of those kids that's ED and that just constantly has to be flying off the handle or disrupting. One teacher said, what I do is I have a student like that, and we've talked to the parents, and we've come up with this plan where he's allowed 5 outbursts during the class period because he can't help himself. Okay? There's those people that just have to say something or do that. So he's allowed 5. So when he says his first one, she just keeps teaching, walks by there and just does the number 1 to let him know, you're at number 1, you're at number 2, 3, So he knows, okay, I'm going to have to really hold on because I only get 5 and I'm already at 3. So if I want to, because otherwise you're just going to be fighting a losing battle. And the parents are going to be against you. Everyone's going to be mad at you. The AP's mad at you, and the assistant principal's mad at you because you just keep sending people to the office, and it's just disruptive all the way around, okay? So you're going to have to kind of work through some of that stuff. And sometimes you have to compromise, but you can work around them, okay? Because again, remember, this child belongs to someone who loves him very dearly. Remember that. It's when your children are going to school and you're going, I can't believe they said that. Oh, what kind of they don't know what's going on at home. If they knew it. just like you won't know what's going on in home. You don't know what's going on in their lives. You don't know all the stuff. You know, you're expecting them to go home and do the flipped classroom, and they have to go home and babysit their younger siblings and do all kinds of things. So, you know, the two-parent home, you know, that's not the norm in many schools. Single-parent homes are. And so they're really having to take on things. So just keep that in mind, okay? All right. So are you a facilitator learning? And so are you facilitating, or are you just the teacher up there just throwing out stuff? Are you really trying to do things to get them to think and think big? What does active engagement mean? And by saying that, people say, well, I would have an actively engaged. Well, you know, they can be engaged. And they can get you engaged too. Okay? They can. Sometimes take a deep breath sometimes and just kind of smile. Because sometimes you're going to have to do that. But you're going to do fine. Okay. So make sure that you have... and then it's okay to ask, you know, what happens next? Okay? So... is there anything I need to be doing? What are the next steps? Or is it just a wait to hear from a principal? Because if it's with HR, then it's really just waiting to hear from a campus or principal, okay? Because HR really kind of steps back at that point on doing it. If it's from a campus interview, it's okay to ask them, when will you make a decision? Are you looking to make a decision quickly? Are you looking to fill this position right away? What is it that you're wanting to do? Okay? On that. And completing the application, what is one of the things that I keep doing? I don't do it as well as I want to. What do I keep doing? Pacing, right? I'm a very nervous person. No. It's all part of teaching, because at teaching, you don't stand at the front and go on and on and on. I keep wanting to automatically head that way, then I have to stop myself and go, ooh, backtrack on doing that. But that's all part of teaching as well. I have to be engaged and make sure that you guys in the back, because normally I would already been back there visiting with those people, been way back here doing all these kinds of things. So make sure that in your classroom, that's what you're doing. You know, and I taught a lot from the back, you know, always standing in the back and walking around, because, you know, those are really where the fun people are. In the back. Okay. Complete an application. Make sure your references, documents, criminal history check. We're going to check your to see if you're a criminal or not, and whether it's true. We can work through a lot of things. You have to disclose it on your application. Now, I don't care about the parking ticket, and I don't care about you ran a red light, unless you hit somebody and ran over them, you know, then I would want to know. But for the most part, you have to disclose it, because if you get a hit, and a lot of us will get hits, then the first thing we do is we go check, did you disclose it on your application? And if you didn't, then you falsified your application. And we don't move further. Most of the stuff we can move through. But I have a DWI. You know, from 5 years ago, from 10 years ago, that's probably not going to be a problem unless you're applying for bus driver. And that's true. That's an issue. Okay? If you're a bus driver, we look at that. But if you've had 3 DWIs or DUIs in the last 10 years, now that's an issue. Okay? Oh, I was, you know, a possession of marijuana when I was 19, whatever. Okay, we understand that. You just didn't happen to be in Colorado, I know. It just didn't work out for you. Okay. But at my age, if I get caught with that a year ago, that's an issue. Okay? Because we consider the age, we consider what's going on in your life at that time. There's a lot of things that are going on. Okay? So, because people are sweating it out and stuff like that. But you know, for the most part, you're going to be fine on things, unless it's something that had to do with kids, and then you probably won't get hired at all. anywhere. Fingerprinting, you have to be fingerprinted through a school district, okay? For certification, substitutes should already be fingerprinted. You're good. Because now when you're fingerprinted, the minute they arrest you, we get notified within a couple of hours, you know, on that or anything on that. And it only goes to very specific people. It doesn't go to everybody in HR. I have no clue when any of that happens. That's not my job. We have certain people that do that. But you will have to be fingerprinted. Okay, if you're a para-educator, you probably were fingerprinted as well through the school district. Daycare centers, that's a different database. I worked with the FBI. Why do you need to finger? I had clearance. Okay, great, awesome. I'm impressed. But you have to be. The state wants their money, so you have to be fingerprinted through their things. Okay, so how do you do that? You can apply for your probationary certificate. Don't pay for it, okay? Because I think after 3 or 4 days or 2 weeks, definitely 2 weeks, if you haven't paid for it, they take it off your record. But you can apply for your probationary certificate, and when you apply for it, it will pop up Pay Online Now, and then it'll show fingerprinting, Pay Online Now, pay for fingerprinting. You're going to then get an email, usually within an hour, but definitely within 24 hours, and then you can call and make an appointment and go get fingerprinted. Because if you're going to get hired, you have to be fingerprinted. So if you're already ahead of the game, or if you're thinking of substitute teaching, all this stuff, all of that will already be done, okay? Because once the summer hits, guys, everybody's trying to get fingerprinting done, and so sometimes you have to wait 2 or 3 weeks, and sometimes a month out. And if you do that, that just kind of slows down. I'll hire this one because they're already fingerprinting, as opposed to you that I have to wait for 3 or 4 weeks. Yes, ma'am.
So is the fingerprinting through the state so that every district will have it?
Yes, ma'am.
So then you only need to do it with one
You only do it one. You only do it through one district, or you do it as part, because you can't get your probationary certificate without it. So you can just do that on your own. But if you've been fingerprinted through a district like the substitutes, where they upload them and do all that stuff, then you're good already. Okay? No, not to my knowledge. No. Okay? Contacting principals. Okay. Contacting principals. Can I contact a principal in the larger school districts, in most school districts in Houston? No. Everything goes through HR. Small school districts, private schools and stuff like that, yes, because it's one person and they kind of like, they just welcome that and then, oh, you know, those kind of things. But at the larger ones, everything is done online. We do screening, we do the thing, and our principals will sit there. Why does this person keep emailing me? Will you tell them to stop emailing me? Why? Because they get so many emails on an inbox, and I get lots of emails, and it's, unless there's a specific question, they just get deleted on the thing, because the thing is you have to apply. Then I go into the applications because I've got my searches. I have everything already set up, so it's easy for me to go through applications on doing that. But the main thing is your application has to be complete. In other words, for me, the references have to come back, okay, on that. Probably about 50 to 60% of applications that are put in are never seen because they're incomplete, okay? So just keep that in mind. Screeners, okay. Some of these applications have built-in screeners, or they've attached screeners to them, okay. If you apply in Aldine, I think they review your application, and if they're interested, then they send you a link. It's a link from HireVue. In HireVue, it's just really, it's an online video thing. You open it up on your phone, on your laptop, and it'll have like 4 or 5 questions. It's an actual interview. It will ask you the question, you respond and record yourself, and when you submit that one, when you're done with that, you go to the next question, and then when you do the final submission, it goes back into your application. So when principals are looking at your application, they look at, okay, oh, here's a Math 712. Oh, let me see what their screener looks like. Ooh, not so much. or, oh wow, this one sounds really good, okay? Treat it like a real interview because it is. So, have a sterile environment behind you, okay? Because when you're recording yourself, I see everything behind you. When I'm looking at stuff and doing video things, sometimes I'm looking at their walls and going, oh, really? Why did they not realize that's behind them? Those kinds of things. Don't have your cat crawling over around you and your dog barking, and you're over here talking and thinking I can hear you because it picks all that up. Okay? Just remember that. Dress appropriately. Okay? You don't have to go all out, but dress nicely because this is part of an interview. And once it goes in there, it stays in your application files, and sometimes 2 years, 3 years, sometimes just a year, but it's still during that hiring year. So take it seriously. There's Spark Hire. I think HISD is partnering with Spark Hire. There's another one, Rivs. There's quite a few. That's the new thing on doing that, because when we get all these EC through 6, before I pull all these people in, I narrow it down to who has a complete application. Now I start seeing how they responded to question number 3. And then I narrowed it from there, and now let's see how they respond. Then I narrow it down from there, and then I see who responded. Let's look at how they responded to question number 2, and then I narrow it down, and then that brings it down to who I want to bring in. Okay? So on these, you don't want to come across as crazy and goes, oh, I've never done this before. Oh, I hope I'm doing this right. Oh, because remember, that's exactly what I'm going to see. Everything you do. Okay? Pretend it's a real interview, smile, slow down, and do that. It's okay to have notes on there. Just don't sit there and have them right there and you're reading and talking on doing that. Okay? There's Gallup screeners sometimes that you have to fill out. They ask you all these questions. It's like a questionnaire on there. Most of them have gotten rid of Gallup. It's just because of the expense. But some school districts still have that. I think Tomball has Polaris that they use. It's basically, again, just trying to get attitudes. Think of nice, warmy, you want to go hug a tree when you're answering those things. Okay? You love everybody. All right? So just be aware of those. Okay? Don't think, oh, well, I know when to read it. Yes, because you get a score on those. And on those video ones, every time someone looks at one, then they have to rate it. Just kind of like you rate a movie on Netflix or whatever, rate, 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, they rate it, and then the next person rates it, and it will show, they got 3.5 stars, out of 10 ratings. It just kind of shows, and it shows which is kind of good, because that way it's not just one person giving you a rating on there. Okay, but just be aware of that on there. All right. So they're going to want to know why you want to be a teacher. They're going to want to know about lesson design on a lesson plan. Okay, so if you were doing a lesson, what are some of the things that you would do? They're going to want to know about classroom management, how you would handle it. They could just ask about classroom management in general, or how you would handle a specific kid. If it's about a specific kid, go back to your general classroom management. If I need to have all this stuff, if all of these things are in place, everything needs to be in a proactive mode. Okay? In other words, don't say, oh, I guess I would do this, or oh, I would. No. You need to be able to say, well, let me tell you, I would already have this in place. We would have already established relationships. So therefore, I would have already contacted the parents. Okay? That way, if we were having this difficulty, they would already know that if I call, the protocols for that. We would already have talked about consequences and things. So it would just really kind of be things as normal. Then if it got to a point where it actually had to be handed over to an assistant principal, okay, I would have already spoken with the assistant principal on how to handle that, and maybe talk to other team members. See, having the same problem in the other class, or is it just me? Is it something I'm doing in my classroom that's triggering off this situation, or is it just who they're paired with at that time? See how that response is much more you know, it's not reactive, it's proactive. You've already done this. Remember, you've already got all this stuff in place when you're responding. Don't say, well, I would then, and I guess I would call the parents, and all. You have to say, well, I would have already established a relationship with those parents, and this blah, but if this was something, you know, and then you just start going from there. Everything is nice, calm, cool, and collective, okay? So we want to know about assessments, okay? We're going to want to know about technology. Give me an example how you would use technology to enhance a lesson, okay? That's one of the questions. How will the diverse learning needs of your students influence your teaching? Who wants to take a stab at that one? Come on, be brave. All right, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. How will the diverse learning needs of your students affect your teaching?
Basically, I will get to know my students, learn who are into football, who are into music. Those who are into music might learn certain concept better if you put them in the form of a sound. Those who are into football might learn certain things like statistics better because of the basketball game scores.
Is she on the right track? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Because you're going to say, oh, yeah, it's going to influence your teaching tremendously because that's knowing, you know, their learning needs is going to drive your teaching. In other words, you can't teach the same way to first period like you do to second period, exactly the same, because they're different kids, okay? Also, she said something about getting to know those kids, especially at the secondary level. It pays to go to that soccer game. It pays, even if it's just one. It pays to go to that football game. It pays to go to that basketball game. Why? Or to the choir concert. Because you're going to see a kid there, and then you're not going to realize that there are other kids involved as well. And you're going to find out that they have talents. You're going to appreciate them in a different light. I know sometimes you have a negative thing about one person, then you go here, and then you go, oh, I didn't know they did. I should have known that. Okay? I should have known that. Okay? So you need to get to know those kids. All right? All right. Anything they ask you about how you would do certain things in the classroom, it all comes back to that classroom management, comes back to differentiated instruction, okay, learning styles. Okay, do your homework, please, because this is kind of like a crash course on everything, all right? But throw it all together. Okay, who has already been to an interview? Okay, give me one question that maybe they would ask.
What would you do if you were having a conflict with a fellow teacher in your team?
Okay, and we covered that. What would you do if you had a conflict with a teacher? Remember we talked about conflict resolution. Look that up because there are steps on that, okay? You remember a question?
You kind of went over one.
Okay. Anything that maybe I didn't throw out? Okay.
I was once asked by an administrator what I would do if I was assaulted by a student.
What would you do if you were assaulted by a student? Yeah, and again.
Why is he assaulting me?
Right. Why is he assaulting you? Right, because it could be an ED. If you say, oh, I would hit him back, I'm not going to take that. You know, why is he assaulting? Because if you're in a life skills classroom with really that's to be expected. You know, yeah, so that's exactly what they want to know. Why is it, I have to understand what the situation is. Is it this? Is it that? If it was here or if it was just a student, you know, and understanding, you know, what are my resources? Should I be crying for help? Or should I be, because, yeah, and sometimes, yeah, the kids just went off and there may be a student that you don't know. Is there, yes?
I remember when, I interviewed at Sci-Fair and it was the 3 R's and you had to rank them.
The rigor, relevance, and relationships.
Yes, and then you had to rank, describe, or in your words, describe what those 3 words were and rank in importance.
We have an RR conference, rigor, relevance, relationships, and they asked you to rank them, and hopefully you said relationships first. Yeah, because relationships, that's the big thing. It's always about a safe learning environment and having that relationship, okay? And then of course the making it relevant, making it rigor, what that means. The rigor Remember we talked about special ed where sometimes you're just doing too much loving and not enough teaching, so there's no rigor in that classroom. That's very good. Okay, one more question that maybe somebody.
It's a half day. You have a test scheduled for one class, and the next class is an important lesson that they have to get through, and there's a fire drill in the middle of all this. How do you arrange your tests and lessons?
Okay, so it's half day. There's a fire drill that comes up at you. The next class, there's a very important test or lesson that they have to get through. How do you adjust on that thing? And again, if you already have your planning in place and everything already there, you can know what you can pull out or how you can squeeze it and make it in there. Okay, and if you know the kids, you can cut out an activity or two, but they still have to get that concept. Remember, because you can't affect learning readiness. Okay, yes, ma'am. Would you be available for extracurricular activity? Remember when I said add cheerleading, add all the stuff that you were involved in? That's what they want to know. Okay? And so, so don't get into all this other stuff, okay? Just